And welcome in to the Four Verticals Podcast, episode 176 for Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. High top a beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. A lot to discuss here, guys. A lot to discuss. We have my notes here. We have teams I'm concerned about for this upcoming season. Got a couple of, not a couple, about 6 teams we'll go over. We also have our post-spring poll. Finally, some of you probably saw this on the socials a little bit earlier. I'm getting a little bit of a preview of what the post-spring poll we have of all the teams we have. I'll go over that here in just a little bit. We still have Kalen DeBoer getting a brand new extension on his contract. And we also have thoughts on the Bucs draft. The first round is tonight. Of course, on ESPN and ABC, Buccaneers are picking at the moment, I believe, in the top 15, top 20. So we'll see if there's any trades or stuff like that happens with Tampa. But for the most part, they'll be, of course, picking in the first round, and we'll be going over who I think will pick with their first round pick, and we'll dive into which side of the ball I think they'll go and which player I think it will go with. So again, if you are new here, welcome to the show. We do this show twice a week, Thursdays and Tuesdays usually, and we also have the Extra Pod, Four Verticals Extra Pod on Spotify, exclusive only, by the way. So if you want to listen to the Four Verticals Extra Pod, go to Spotify and check it out. That should be in the description of the channel. Also follow us on Twitter as well, X, and follow us on Instagram as well. So, with all that being said here, again, make sure you subscribe. If you're new here, also, obviously do that. But if you're a returning subscriber, also check. Be sure that you are subscribed, as well. So be sure to do all that. And I'll be, that's all we ask of you guys. There's nothing we ask for you guys other than make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's all we're asking for. That's all we ever need from you guys. All right. Get some water real quick, hydrate, as we always do, and make sure we do that, and then we will go ahead and get started. Of course, we are live on YouTube and on Spotify as well. Just make sure we get that out for you guys to know. All right. First up here, teams I'm concerned about. We have 6 teams here, and we've talked about these teams a whole lot, but these are just teams that I am concerned, worry about, teams that are either getting a lot of hype or maybe you're getting no hype. I'm still concerned about teams that I am very much so afraid could be total disasters. Now, this not necessarily means your coach is on the hot seat or anything like that. This is just more or less looking at teams in general in terms of whether I think the roster is bad, the dynamics are bad, or any combination of both really all fits and all sort of fit into why I have these teams listed here. So let's go through them here on the list here. First off, Florida State. At the first team we'll talk about here. Obviously, the Mike Norvell situation. Won't he be fired? That was the question last year, and he gets retained, and all of a sudden he's still around. You guys lose Gus Malzahn. You have Ashton Daniels as your starter at quarterback. The recruiting's not been going well. I just, based on all of that, and not to mention your schedule, it's very, very difficult for me to be positive about Florida State. Okay, now let's just put it out there. I mean, sure, they could be a surprise team. They could be, much like last year, start off with a very, very competent record, and then things go down, in a very, very negative sense. So Florida State obviously should be on there as a team that I am very concerned about. This next one may surprise you a little bit, but maybe won't, is Auburn. Again, just to put it out there right now, I am not hating on Auburn. I actually like the hire of Alex Flesch. Okay, I think it's a fantastic hire. But this year for Auburn, not only is the schedule, difficult, and I mean, look, every single team in the SEC has a difficult schedule, obviously. But in terms of Auburn, it's a little bit more unique because even with, what you had under Hugh Freeze, right, you recruited really well, you got a really good roster, you had a good staff for the most part. But the problem is, though, you had, under Hugh Freeze's doctorate, if you will, with all those things being said, there's a whole lot of flexing, if you will, right? Flexing of, recruiting prowess. Be able to get a good staff in place. All that, you did all that flexing. You did all these recruits who were there to basically scare the crap out of you. You basically did nothing, right? Even though you had a good roster, you didn't really do anything with it. They're just there for flexing pretty much. And that's what Auburn adopted under Hugh Freeze. But now, even though you got rid of Hugh Freeze because of his offense being bad and his overall record was horrendous, not really much different than Brian Harsin, now you bring in Alex Galesh, who is a much better hire in terms of running a modern offense. Has better track record, at least modernly, of running a efficient offense and being able to develop quarterbacks in a modern sense of college football and also big time college football, not to mention. But fix the microphone here. You run into a point where you did that. You did a lot of good things there, and not to mention you retain DJ Durkin, who's a really good defensive coordinator for Auburn. I think they're happy for him to still be there. But the problem is that, well, yes, under Hugh Freeze, you did a lot of flexing and whatnot. You flexed a lot of your power, and you had all these recruits who were, again, there basically to scare the crap out of you, but didn't really do anything. The problem is, and again, this is not even me echoing this, a lot of our folks have interesting concern. Well, yes, they made a really good hire in Alex Kalesh, right? That's been out there and documented. You lose a lot of those recruits who are SEC caliber players, not just Cam Coleman, but other receivers along with him. Some of your offensive line, defensive linemen have left for various reasons. So, and just the fact that, again, your blue chip ratio is taking a huge hit. Again, I know Bud has not put out the graphic yet on the blue chip ratio, but I imagine it's taking a significant hit. Based on all of that and the talent, at least that you're losing, those really, really good. And yes, you're bringing in talent. You're splitting that. You're splitting that. I don't know. There's just something. You're bringing in talent to replace it. There we go. I don't know what I was just saying. Splitting. I don't know. My brain just shut off there. Anyway, who cares? So you lose talent. That was, again, high blue chip ratio talent. Now you're replacing it with good G5 talent, but still, it's G5 talent. And again, we don't know for sure if it will really pan out. Again, I'm hoping it does. And again, based on the fact that the offense that Auburn's running, this veer and shoot, Baylor Brile stuff, again, you don't need necessarily the ultra talented wide receivers or, super duper talented quarterbacks. While it is nice to have all that, you don't necessarily need it. But again, the problem is, though, is that this is the SEC. You're playing against teams of other teams that have high caliber talent. Again, it's just the mixture there to me is a concern that this could, while yes, it may look good on the surface and saying, hey, look, this is a good, massive upgrade with Alex Kalesh. The talent, though, took a massive hit, which is why I am concerned about Auburn, though this is only for this year. Though I'm not concerned about them going forward, which is what I'm trying to say here. Next up, a team that Auburn ironically plays later in the year is Baylor. Baylor is a team that could have easily fired their coach last year, Dave Aranda. He's still around, though. He's still around. Some of it for different reasons, mostly for Baylor in terms of their athletic department having, at least university-wise and administrative-wise, having changes. But, I mean, Baylor, it's kind of weird. It's almost like, again, I touched on this the other day, where it's almost like a match made in heaven, right? You have a desperate quarterback, DJ Lagway, who's wanting to improve himself and make a name for himself after his Florida experience did not go so well. And you also have Dave Aranda, who's looking to, keep his job and also get back into the good graces of Baylor Nation, right? So it's almost kind of this weird combination of desperateness surrounding Baylor, where it could be a good thing, but also it could be a bad thing, and it could be a total disaster, and Dave Aranda's out of the job, right? So Baylor should obviously be on this list here of teams I'm concerned about. This next one, no shocker, South Carolina, right? You have injuries at key positions in the spring. You have just a complete deflating of momentum after last year. Yes, you bring back Lenore Sellers, who is a rock star quarterback in terms of his ability to run the football, and he's a dual threat guy and whatnot. But the problem is, though, you have this dual threat quarterback in Lenore Sellers, but you have nothing else around him that's really appealing to me. Like a lot of the rosters, sort of like the Auburn situation, where the roster is definitely a lot lower than most of your peers around you. But Auburn's roster, though, even with the departures and the supplementation, there we go. That's what I was thinking of earlier. The supplementation of newer talent from the G5. Well, yes, it's a little bit better than South Carolina. The situations aren't really far apart from each other, and that's where with South Carolina, given that, yes, it also doesn't make it a lot better that you have Shane Beamer still there. And look, I like Shane Beamer. He's a good coach and a good man, but you still have him. It's a school that, in the words of Bud Elliott, they take the checks, take the losses, right? They're there to just either basically be the jobber of all the other teams in the SEC, and that's the role they play. And unfortunately, for South Carolina fans, as much as they cheer as loud as they can, and they show up every single Saturday to the stadium and campus and whatnot. It is a program right now, at least as of right now, that just seems a bit listless, boring, and kind of bland. Right outside of Lenore Sellers, who on South Carolina is they're going to be a contributor. I mean, again, like I mentioned, you've already had injuries on your offensive line. One's out for the whole year. He tore his ACL, I think. And then you also have another offensive lineman who's also hurt. Your wide receiver core didn't really get upgraded at all. So it's just kind of, it's tough to really have a good outlook for South Carolina. And again, I believe they play Mississippi State fairly early in the year. That's a game that is looming extremely large for South Carolina and for Mississippi State, frankly. Next up here, second to last, Washington. Not necessarily concerned about the actual program. I think the program at Washington's fine. I think Jeff Fish is doing a good enough job there, I think. The problem is, though, again, there's this whole Damon Williams thing, right? Is he fully committed? I know the whole thing about what happened in January and December. He posted that, cryptic post of him going to the portal on the day where everyone was attending that funeral for, I believe, like a volleyball player, I believe, or something like that. Someone, I don't know what you call it. I guess was it a volleyball player? I think it was a volleyball. Anyway, it was a university student athlete who passed away at a funeral. Very sad situation. But of course, Damon Williams posted something about him leaving. They're very, very cryptic. Didn't even go to the funeral. Apparently, according to rumors, a lot of players are very, very mad at him about that. Very pissed off. And of course, they should. Very, very strange timing and very odd. So, as I'm trying to say, is that the dynamic there is not very good in terms of the leadership stuff. The behind the scenes, the vibes are very, very bad. At least they seem bad. Now, so far as I've been perusing around X and the internet, it seems like things are sort of safe for them. But then again, what happens when you start losing games? Let's just say, look at their schedule here. Washington Huskies football. Look at their schedule here as I pull it up. The minute they lose games, like let's say they lose to Minnesota or USC, right? They start the season, let's say that'll be 3-2. Who's to say that those negative feelings and those negative, thoughts towards Damon Williams and this whole thing fractures and the thing kind of falls apart. So as I'm trying to, I say all that to say the situation they're at in Washington still feels very fractured. It feels very fragile. The second they start losing games, again, you start to have the doubts start creeping in. Is Damon Williams a leader? Is he still invested? Is the team still invested? Is the team, is it divided and whatnot? That's my fear. And again, they could lose some of these games here in October for sure. Iowa, USC, Minnesota, Purdue, probably not. Nebraska, certainly on the road. So then after that, you get rewarded by playing Penn State, Michigan State, Oregon, and then Indiana as well. So Washington, definitely a team I'm concerned about, just from total vibes. And in North Carolina, last year, just all these teams basically combined here. You have hot seat, check. Roster fragileness, check. Even though they've upgraded the roster kind of, and along with upgrading the coaching staff, but still, coaching staff, hot seat situation, check. Fragile roster, check. Mostly made out of transfers. Fan base, checked out. So all those things are all checked. As to why I am very concerned about UNC. Not to mention, too, what happened last year, and Belichick still somehow keeping his job is amazing to me. So that all of that combined is the reason why I'm concerned about UNC. Now, like I said yesterday on the Extra Pod, again, they did a good job of upgrading their staff, right? Bring in Bertrino, you overhaul the roster a little bit. So again, everything is all there on paper, emphasize paper, to say, hey, UNC, they kind of sneakily upgraded some stuff. And they certainly did, but here's the problem. Like I mentioned yesterday on the Extra Pod, the schedule you had last year is what you wanted to have this year. But it's the opposite. The schedule you had last year was for a team that is way worse. Was horrible. And obviously you saw what happened last year with the 4-8 record. Now, you made all these changes, and your reward is, you're playing a very difficult schedule. So UNC, obviously, I am extremely concerned about them. So all these teams, again, Florida State, Auburn, Baylor, South Carolina, Washington, UNC are teams I'm concerned for this year. Again, this is nothing to say that I'm concerned about these teams in the future, per se. Like for Auburn, I'm not totally concerned, nor I am with Washington. Like long-term, I think they'll be fine. This year, they're concerned. And then the other ones I mentioned here, Florida State, Baylor, South Carolina, UNC, there's legit concern there for their programs, at least in the not like forever, for until the end of time, but at least in the foreseeable future, there's some concern there going forward, and I would be, I think I'll definitely, at least I'll have folks agree with me on that. There is some general concern there for those programs, at least beyond this year. But for this year, like Auburn, UNC, Auburn, Washington, those are teams. At least for this year, I am concerned. Though you can make the argument maybe I should be concerned again. Even with Auburn, again, I think Dallas Kolesh hire is good. I think the offense to bring in is good. I think getting Byron Brown's a massive upgrade. But unfortunately, his supporting cast, not the same as it was last year in terms of the potential. Again, I get it. There was other factors as to why they left and for varying degrees. But again, I have my constitutional, I'm exercising my constitutional right. So I am still concerned, even with all those positive things there. But going forward in the future for Auburn and potentially even Washington, yeah, I'm not concerned. I think they'll be probably fine. So teams I'm concerned about could have added on more teams on here, but those are to not make that whole segment go beyond 30 minutes. We avoided that, so we only stuck at the 6 teams. Again, guys, as we are live here on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we are not the oldest show, and it's the game here for college sports live streams and podcasts, but we are definitely the newest one, and we're still growing, and we're making improvements as we go along. And speaking of improvements, I'm going to try this out here on the stream. First time ever, we are actually using actual graphics on the show. I don't think I've ever said that before. We are using graphics here on the show, the first time ever. So I'm going to try and do this. I want to actually go on my phone over here and go to the live stream on my phone and see how it looks on there, and then we will press on. So have it on my phone here. So image, photo library, shows the right one here. Looks like it's freezing up just a little bit, but that's okay. All right. Thought I was able to add the image. I guess not. Let me try this again. Well, maybe I was wrong about adding an image in. I thought I was going to. Stand by here, folks, as we are live. This earlier, it was working, so that's strange. So we're doing the image here. Again, as we're talking here, again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening to this on the podcast feed, just ignore this. We are trying to upload a graphic, but it's not working for some reason. Thought it would. Of course, I say that, maybe we're going to have the first time ever a graphic being installed, but I guess that means not the case. Actually, let me do it this way. Actually, let me try something else. Let's see here. Again, my apologies, folks. I thought this would be a lot easier, but guess it's not going to. Let me see here. Maybe we can try something else. Maybe we just can't do this, I guess, live, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe we'll try this different way, I guess. Maybe this will work. If you see the screen here on YouTube look a little funky, then apologize for that. You're going to see me on here twice, but is what it is. So you're going to hear some feedback here. Maybe I should mute myself. And there we go. Okay, let's see if we can pull this up. Share image. Okay, now it's working, I think. Yes. Okay, now I need to figure out how I'm not hearing myself twice here. Now that's the problem now. So the thing is working now, so maybe if I X out here, maybe that'll work. All right, now it's fixed now. All right, good. Guess it doesn't matter. All right, so I think this is fixed now here on live on YouTube. Again, apologies for that. We ran into some issues, but now it looks like we are. Looks like my phone's a little bit behind there, but that's okay. I guess we'll just leave it. You can still see the screen. It's the graphic is right here as I'm pointing live on YouTube. On my phone, there's a bit of a delay, so hopefully. And apologies for this. Again, it's the first time I was using graphics here, so let me break my. I'm pretty sure the graphic is right here. Okay, now it's a little bit behind, but it's catching up. All right. I think we're okay on doing that. All right, so again, apologies. So that was really, really weird. So I don't know why that wasn't working on my pad. I have to go literally to my computer, upload this graphic, and now here it is. All right. I think everything's fine now. So this graphic here is, of course, our post-spring top 25 ranking. So yes, the first time ever on the history of this show, even though it took us a while to get here, we do have a live graphic here to show you guys. Right here on the side here is our top 25 rankings. So I'll have this graphic here, but I'll be reading this from my spreadsheet on my other computer here. So you go to the Google Sheets document I have on here, and we'll just read it. I'll read it off from here, but you guys can see it on the graphic here. So you have a visual representation, first time ever. This is insane. So finally, we have this figured out. So if you're on the old school podcast feed, you can't see this, but on YouTube, you can see this. And this is also on my Twitter X feed and also on our Instagram as well. I posted that a little bit before. So I'm going to get some water real quick, and then we'll actually dive into this. And yes, if you're wondering, this is made by AI. So that is true. But you know, got to use the tools that are out there, and this was made quickly. So who knows? Maybe if this works out and you know, we still have this product available to us, we can use this in the future. So yeah, this could be a good thing going forward. Anyway, so post-spring top 25. This is including all the information we have now that spring practices are pretty much over for the most part. I know there's a few that are still going on. We will just count down here, starting from 25 on the screen, going all the way to number 1, which is Ohio State up there. So 25 to 20. We have Texas Tech at 25. We have Louisville, Clemson, Michigan, Washington, and Houston. Texas Tech, again, they've reloaded with Joey McGuire and company. They have Brendan Sorsby at quarterback. I feel good. Though, again, they've lost a lot of players, grant you, to the NFL draft or graduations. They have to replace a lot, which is why they're a bit lower. I believe they're even lower than they were last time, which is a bit of a change. But nothing against them. It's just I think them starting at 25 to me sounds a little bit more appropriate. A lot of changes there. Doesn't mean it's not a bad change, as they say. You know, all changes are always good, and they're also always bad, or whatever it's called. So Texas Tech at 25. 24 Louisville. Again, I trust Jeff Brom. He's a very good offensive mind. Much like Texas Tech, a lot of changes over there, but we'll see. But they're definitely a team in the ACC that I'm paying attention to for sure. At 23, Clemson. Feel a lot better about them, believe it or not. Again, I know a lot of folks are still cautious about Christopher Vizina being the starting quarterback for them. I agree, right? You know, you hear guys like Bud Elliott and all these recruiting folks. They're not over the moon about Chris Vizina, but I think what we saw from them, the fact they can actually, you know, again, I get it's a spring game, and like I said on Tuesday, it's, you know, very easy to overreact and also underreact. But the fact that they had somewhat of a good running game, Vizina looked somewhat competent. I will say Clemson being ranked at 23 to me, I'm somewhat comfortable with. I'm not fully, you know, supporting it. I'm not going to move them much higher than the 20s, but Clemson at 23, I think it's fair. It could change when we get to the fall and whatnot, but at the moment, as we enter the summer, they're the 23rd best team in the country, at least in my opinion, going after post-spring. They're at 23. 22, Michigan. They may have been bumped down just a little bit, down to the 20s, but again, some of it is from the spring game, but, you know, I still think they'll be a good team. Again, like I said on Tuesday, just because Bryce Underwood looked like a pretty, you know, complete crap doesn't mean that they're going to be complete crap for the season. I think they'll be fine. Again, like I mentioned on Monday, just because you have a dual threat quarterback struggle doesn't mean they're going to be complete garbage overall. Okay, like I think they'll be fine. I think even though it looked bad this weekend, I think they'll be okay. Now, number 21, Washington. Again, even with all the distractions and the, you know, uneasiness about DeMar Williams and him coming back after testing the portal, as long as he is there and he's healthy, the locker room is all good, like I just mentioned in the last segment, they'll be fine, right? I'm still concerned about them, much like the team at 19, but I still think if everything goes well and everything goes according to plan, they'll be fine. Okay, so there's no real, you know, I'm not totally concerned about them in terms of like they're going to be like you know, if everything goes well, again, they'll be fine. But if everything does not go well, then that's why I've had them on the concern teams I'm concerned about. So again, I know I'm seeing Washington there after we just talked about them and the teams I'm concerned about. They can still have a good season. Again, it has to be if everything goes swimmingly, then this ranking will validate, at least in my opinion. But if it doesn't, then my concern will also validate. So it's kind of giving me some buffer here, if you will. But anyway, Washington at 21. At number 20, let me get back to my spreadsheet here. A little easier for me to read. All right, number 20, Houston. This is a good team, man. I know it's, Willie Fritz has been there for a little bit. I know they had a good season last year and whatnot. And a lot of folks are still kind of uneasy about Houston. But let me tell you something. If Keyshawn Henderson, the 5-star quarterback, who was a freshman this year, you will likely be a starter, even though Carter Whitman's still there. I think a lot of folks like Bud Elliott and folks around the industry do feel that Keyshawn will be your starter. If he is your starter and Houston's able to take advantage of a very workable schedule, they should be one of the best teams in the Big 12 this year. Again, I know a lot of folks are still kind of in the zone of, oh, Houston's still that silly G5 team. We shouldn't take them seriously, should we? Guys, you should be reminded that they are a Big 12 team, not a G5 team. They've been in the Big 12 for like almost a half decade now. Okay, so they've been around for a little bit in the Big 12. Well, I think Willie Fritz has done a fantastic job building that roster. Yes, it's still have a long ways to go, but again, if things go well, and Keyshawn ends up penning off for him in a Big 12 and a conference that is, for the most part, very much so up in the air. A lot of things could happen. They could be a very, very, very good team this year if things go according to plan. Much like Washington, and much like the team at 19, Auburn. And we'll go now from 19. I guess we'll do 19 to. I guess we'll do 19 to 15. I guess 19 through 15. Yeah, I guess we can. Actually, no, we'll probably go 19 to 16. We'll do these teams, I guess. Yeah, 19 through 16. Number 19, Auburn. Again, I know a lot of you are going to say, wait, hold on a minute. You had them in your teams you're concerned about. Why is Auburn all the way at 19? Well, again, that was just my concerns. I'm not saying I'm totally like selling my Auburn stock and saying they're going to suck. No, we haven't even done our record projections yet. So Auburn at 19, I think it's fairly fair, right? Again, they've upgraded at quarterback. They've upgraded at quarterback. They've retained DJ Durkin. They have a schedule. While yes, it's tough, and I just talked about how there is some difficulty, they can still take advantage, right? That Florida game early on is going to be probably the biggest vibes bowl in terms of teams that are borderline, either just barely making a bowl game to potentially being a surprise team in the SEC. I think I'm pretty fair for saying that. I think so. Auburn at 19. It's sort of like, again, I've used this analogy before. I know it's kind of cliche, but this Auburn team to me reminds me a lot of Josh Heupel's first year at Tennessee. Not just because Alex Glesh was the OC there at Tennessee for that year and the Hendon Hooker years, but I mean, like legitimately, it's very similar, right? You're coming off of a very abysmal 10-year of having two really bad hires. Now you have a coach that comes from the G5, similar to Josh Heupel, runs a similar offense. You bring in a new fresh quarterback, and you have a lot of unknown there. Again, it's fair to be concerned about Auburn for sure, right? I mean, you lose a lot of good talent. You lose especially those receivers. But again, like I mentioned, while yes, I'm concerned about Auburn, there's also cause for optimism, right? You bring in a new quarterback. You have an offense and the veer and shoot that, again, you do not need to have uber talent to run the offense. So that should be made perfectly clear. Again, it's a very simple offense to learn. If you're out of school that runs it. So there's that aspect. And again, if things go well and they get up to a hot start, there's opportunities to be had for Auburn this year. Again, it's not a guarantee, but again, the fact that you upgraded that quarterback, I think they probably got the best quarterback out of the portal, at least one of them. You upgraded that head coach. You also upgraded that DC. Again, like I mentioned earlier, yes, there are concerns for Auburn. This is only mainly on the fact that, again, yes, Byron Brown looked pretty bad in the spring game, but again, there were constraints there. He was not able to run the football. He wasn't able to use his legs, his main skill. So, right, in a normal game, let's say when they play Baylor, right? I would imagine Byron Brown's gonna be able to run for probably close to 100 yards. I guess I shouldn't say guarantee it, but I feel very confident about it that he'll probably be one of the team's leading rushers on that day. So that's the difference from a real game to a spring game. So Auburn at 19, Tennessee at 18. Most like Auburn, again, even with the situation at quarterback, who's going to start for Tennessee? Well, at the moment, we really don't know. I trust Josh Heupel, just blind trust with Josh Heupel. I think they'll get it done. I think the fact that they didn't go after a portal quarterback makes me feel somewhat interestingly confident that they may actually have something in house that they feel good about. Defense, we'll see if it gets better. They have a new staff there. Overall, I think Tennessee at 18, you can put them down maybe a little bit towards where like Clemson is, but that'll be fine too. I think anywhere from Tennessee from 18 all the way to 23, I'll be good with. Now outside the top 25, that's a little extreme. So Tennessee at 18, 17 Kansas State. I would just say this right now, and again, we have not done our record projections yet. I think Kansas State's going to be a very good team this year. I know it's going to be, oh, you fell for it again award with Kansas State. I feel good about it. You bring in Colin Klein. You have him come back with Avery Johnson. They've worked with each other a couple years ago. That, to me, is the combination. Again, with the Big 12 being as wide open as it is to a certain extent, I think Kansas State, with the continuity behind, as we'll get to here in a little bit here, behind the other team I have ranked ahead of them, then the next team we'll talk about at 15, I feel good about them sort of taking the next step up. Even with all these changes, I think Kansas State's in a good position here. At number 16, Penn State. They were probably the biggest riser, I think. Them and a team ahead of them, BYU. That wasn't coordinated with the whole, back on the coaching search with Connie Sataki potentially leaving went on. That was not intentional, but Penn State, again, I feel pretty good about them. That's mainly just blind trust in Matt Campbell. You have Rocco Becht. You have like 90% of Arizona State, or not Arizona State. You have like 90% of the roster from Iowa State coming in. I just think that blind trust has been earned with Matt Campbell. Again, their schedule is also fairly simple as well. I blindly believe they'll be a much better, or at least a decent team, given what they just went through, right? So Penn State at 16 there, I feel pretty good about. I think they should have been a lot higher before, but is what it is. All right, now 15. We'll do 15 through 11 here. BYU, Brigham Young. They returned their quarterback. They got their head coach back. I think most of the roster's back. They have a very, very, I guess not like a hard schedule, but it's a friendly schedule to a certain extent. Because again, it is the Big 12, and it's a lot of these teams are like not uber talented. But again, like I've been saying, there have been some teams, whether it's Texas Tech, Arizona State in the past, Kansas State, especially Brigham Young, who have begun to separate themselves. And I just think, go back to that, like their schedule before, that date, I believe it's in October or September, I believe. I could go check, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it now. That game against Notre Dame, that's their game of the year, I think. At least early on, it's the game of the year against Notre Dame. So BYU at 15, mainly because of quarterback continuity, staff retention. You kept Kalani Sitake. I think they should be a good team, especially if Bear Bachmeier can go the extra step, they'll be good. And number 14, again, it's much like Kansas State. It's like, oh, you're falling for it again. Florida. Now, they could be higher, too. I'll just admit that. They could easily be a lot higher. I'm not going that way. I'm not doing what Josh Pate's done and have them in the top 10. I'm not doing that, okay? I'm not going that extreme. But we will have Florida up at in the top 15 at number 14. I think with John Summerall coming in again, it sounds like I'm falling for it again, but trust me, I'm not, okay? I feel actually legitimately good about Florida. That's not me. This is not me being statistic here. I think they could actually be a good team. Again, if things go well, again, that game against Auburn early on is going to be very, very crucial for them early on in the year. If they win that game, all bets are off. If they lose it, then maybe we have to pump the brakes a little bit, and maybe, yes, I fell for it again. But you upgrade the coaching staff. You bring in a new quarterback in Aaron Filer, who probably will be your starter. You retain a lot of your roster. You keep your running back, Ball, who returns. So, Florida, again, much like last year, it really came down to the quarterback and the offense. That can happen. Florida could easily jump up all the way into the top 10. Again, I know that sounds crazy, but again, you'll listen to guys like the Cover 3 guys, right? Bud and Chip and all of them. They talked about it too. Like Florida, more than likely, is going to be favored in like 80% of their games. Again, which I know a lot of folks don't want to admit that, but trust me, when those betting lines come out from FanDuel, eventually, don't be crying to me going, oh, why is Florida favored in 90% of their games? Oh, I don't know. So yeah, Florida at number 14. 13 LSU. I think, did I bump down just a little bit? I think I did. I think they were higher before pre-spring. And maybe not. Maybe they were the same. I'll have to go check. Let me see. I actually could do that here. Can I? Nah, maybe not. But anyway, yeah. So LSU at number 13. You upgrade at quarterback, I think, with Sam Levitt, if he's healthy or not. You have Lane Kiffin there. It's going to be a struggle for sure, right? It's a new staff there. You're still trying to fill things out. I think they'll be fine. Now, grant you, yes, they have Clemson, they have Ole Miss, who, as you notice on the graphic, has skyrocketed pretty high. After even after when we did this poll back in February, that was after the whole Trinidad Chambliss thing. Even they've risen even higher. Could be an overreaction, but we'll talk about them here in a minute. But LSU at 13, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Even at this stage, of a new first-year staff there, not a first-time staff, but a first-year staff of Lane Kiffin, I think number 13 you should feel good about it. Does it guarantee a playoff spot? We'll see. The team that did fall down just a little bit is Texas A&M at 12. And this is all because of the injury with the Stanford kid, right? He gets hurt. Damian Stanford, he gets hurt. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna take a hit on A&M for sure, especially defensively. We'll see if Marcel Reed takes another step. I think he could. I mean, there's nothing that says he can't, but cautious on that. Not to mention, too, you have changeover at offensive coordinator. So, yes, there's a lot of things to consider there with A&M, especially now with the injury they suffered during their spring game. So, if it didn't happen, it would have been in the top 10, but they got bumped down just a little bit. At number 11, Oklahoma. Feel fairly good about them. Again, you have John Mateer come back. You have Ben Arbrook will come back as the OC quarterback combo there. I think they should be fine there at number 11. Number 10, Indiana. Again, I know a lot of folks are going to say, man, Indiana at number 10, that's kind of low, man. What are you talking about, bro? Number 10, that's kind of issue number 1. I sympathize with that. But again, as I've been saying for a while, yes, I trust Coach Sag, and yes, obviously he has earned a lot of respect, clearly. Again, I'm not saying this is going to be like Auburn from 2010 to 2011, where it's just a complete free fall and they fall down, they fall significantly. No. Obviously, they're not. Auburn was not preseason top 10. Even after the spring, they were not. They were in the 20s. Because of how much they lost. Yes, Indiana lost a similar amount in terms of production, like that Auburn team in 2010 did. But unlike Auburn in 2010, Indiana did a pretty good job of cementing stuff from the pool, right? Getting better, we're getting more talent in there, right? Especially with Josh Shriver at quarterback. So, yes, they're downgraded just a little bit, but that's only because there's a lot of things you just don't know. It's a little bit of mystery right now in terms of what the roster is. Not the coaching staff. The coaching staff, honestly, I have some blind trust into them. But the roster, we'll see. I think them being number 10 is a little bit low, but anywhere below number 10, I would not do that. I think 10's probably the lowest they'll be going here. Who knows? Maybe when we get to our actual preseason post-summer poll or not, they'll be up to number 5. Who knows? Number 9, Alabama. I think they should be good. Whoever's the quarterback there, Keelan or Austin Mack, I really don't freaking care. As long as they can run the football, they'll be fine. Number 8, the Ole Miss. Might be overreaction here. Trinidad's back. If it was not back, they would be probably not even ranked. Actually, that's kind of a little bit of disrespect. They'll probably be in the 20s probably. Like, they'll probably take Clemson's spot, and then they'll just bump up some teams and take Clemson out and bump down Ole Miss number 23 or 24 or whatnot. But, yeah, I think Ole Miss being number 8 with Trinidad being back, as long as he's there, and we'll get to know more, we'll know more about the staff at Ole Miss, and I grant you, yes, it's the same staff as the interim staff, but obviously the roster has changed. How will they look in an actual full 12-game sample size? But as long as Trinidad's healthy, man, they'll be at number 8. Number 7, Oregon, mainly just blind trust here with Dan Lanning. They bring back their quarterback. Yes, offensive line, defensive line, some questions there, but again, as a lot of folks have said, they did not go in the portal and get someone. They blindly trust their recruiting prowess. So I will give Oregon a benefit of the doubt there at number 7. Number 6, USC and Lincoln Riley. Again, they are they're actually the biggest team that moved up actually. They're outright number 6. I believe them and Miami were the biggest movers, I believe. They're the new teams in the top 10. I believe they were the new teams in the top 10, I think. But anyway, yeah, USC, big year for them. They bring back quarterback. They have a new DC and Gary Patterson. I'm not concerned about that. They just landed the number 1 class. I think a lot of those players will be starting immediately, I think. I just trust Lincoln Riley, man. I don't know what to say. I mean, So USC number 6. Number 5, Miami. I think they've upgraded that quarterback in Darian Menza. Enough said. Even with all the things they've lost, I still feel pretty good about Miami. Number 4, Georgia. Again, blind trust of Kirby Smart. Can they run the football a lot better than they did last year and the year before? Maybe they can. Can they get some players? Can they get the wide receiver room to step up? That's another thing. Not to mention the schedule, too. Somewhat difficult. I think Georgia #4 has pretty much been unchanged. Notre Dame at 3, no change there. Texas at 2, no change. Ohio State at 1, no change. And if that's the case, going into the fall, yes, Ohio State, Texas will be the game of the century if things pan out here. So, top 25 post-spring. How about that? First time of the new graphic. Amazing. How about that? It looks, I'm not trying to sound like I'm, overreacting, but man, that's a beautiful graphic here. Yes, I know it's AI, but excuse me, my nose is a little bit stuffy. I just think this is a massive, and this is a massive gift for us here, and that was about time. I've had a lot of feedback about, hey, when you start doing graphics, well, here we go. This is a graphic we're using now. Yes, it's AI, but it's the tools we have right now. Hopefully, someday I'll learn how to do our graphic design. But hey, look, if AI can do it for me, on top of all the other stuff I have to do for the show, it'll work out. So again, this graphic is on the X page and on Instagram if you want to see it. If you can, if you're listening to this on Spotify, obviously if you're on YouTube, you've been looking at it. So there we go. There's a new graphic there. I guess we will get rid of that since we don't need it anymore. I can find a way to move. There we go. And there we go. Well done. How about that? We just, again, apologies for the ability to get the graphic on there. It just took forever, but we figured it out. So thankfully, all right, go back to my notes here. All right, that was an adventure, but yes, there we go, new graphic. All right, real quick here, we'll talk about this Kellen DeBoer story, and we'll move on to the Bucs draft. Yes, Kellen DeBoer, if you missed it, got an extension, 7 years, $12.5 million. The school announced yesterday. I know a lot of folks are going to say, bro, this is kind of premature, bro. He hasn't won anything yet, bro. Like, what the heck is this all about? Well, what it is for Alabama is it's insurance. Because remember, there were stories last year about Kellen DeBoer being poached from Michigan and Penn State and all these other teams. I think this is what I am. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm confident, but I am somewhat starting to believe this is what this is about. It's just insurance for him not to leave and go somewhere else, I think. Because I do believe, yes, those reports were real, but him actually considering leaving was not real, obviously. So now, does he deserve it yet because he hasn't won anything? Look, you guys can have your own opinions about that. Of course, that's their constitutional right here in the United States of America. But for me personally, I don't have a problem with it. Now, I'll grant you, yes, in a certain extent, he wasn't going anywhere anyway. So I've seen that argument. But look, he's getting his money, whatever. I'm sure there will be some folks who will go, well, he didn't win anything and he wasn't really going anywhere, which is, probably true. But again, those reports were, I think, real enough to say, hey, teams wanted him, but was he leaving and going anywhere? No. Because I think that's what this is. And also, I think this is blind trust in Alabama. And Kellen DeBoer, again, I know a lot of folks have been shitting on him. I know a lot of folks are, oh, he's going to get fired anyway. Bama will ultimately regret this. Well, I think if you were not confident, you wouldn't be giving him this extension, right? Like, for example, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, he didn't get an extension. Other coaches around the country, Mike Gundy didn't get an extension last year, nor did Billy Napier, right? So this, to me, speaks even more confidence that Kellen DeBoer is going to be fine at Alabama. And I think that speaks to confidence that they believe that this program is moving in the right direction, right? The first couple of years are still kind of filled out, especially in the first year. I think they're going to be fine. I think Kellen DeBoer's fine. This extension, well, yes, you could make the argument it wasn't necessary, but to me, this speaks to they feel confident about it. They think this guy's the right guy for the job. And I also do believe that this is a response to those rumors about him going to either Michigan or Penn State, and sort of also kind of addressing, the reports of, hey, his family and his wife wasn't happy there, which you cannot verify that. I have not seen anywhere that verifies that. Like Josh Payton didn't talk about it. The guys on Curve 3 didn't talk about it. I didn't see anyone from 247 talk about it. So obviously those rumors of, him actively trying to leave are not real. Those are complete BS and just crap. Okay. So this, and this, in my opinion, and even closes the door on that at all, period. Because or else why would he agree to this? Other than, you could also say, well, he just wanted more money, right? Because he was upset, so they gave him more money. I don't think that's the case here. I think Bama is confident in him. And yes, I think this is them addressing those rumors of, hey, if he wanted to leave, he would have left. And he would have agreed to this extension. So, Ken the board getting his money, good for him. That's all I got to say on that right there. I know this is kind of a brief touching on it, but and there's nothing else to say. I mean, I just think that he wasn't really seriously going anywhere. Well, yes, there were schools who wanted him, but he was not going anywhere. And then you have all those stupid, silly rumors and whatnot that originated from Reddit and the internet. Which, look, those rumors are always out there for sure. And, they're fun to look at and they turn to memes. But in all seriousness, he wasn't going anywhere. Yes, there were teams interested in him, but I don't think he was leaving to go anywhere. And I think this extension addresses that and also addresses Bama's commit to him and to trusting him to be the guy to lead their program for the foreseeable future. And if he gets fired, then don't pay the money. All right, let's see here. Yeah, Bucs draft, and we'll wrap it up with this. So the Bucs, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they will be participating in this year's draft in the first round. They did not give away the first round picks. They will be picking at number 15, I believe. Let me double check here. I mean, we're way enough in the show. We're going to do that. See here. Pretty sure it's at 15. It's 2026 NFL draft. Again, it is tonight. I believe at 8 o'clock, I believe. Kind of, actually, maybe not that late. I think it starts at 7. Of course, it's on the ESPN Family Networks, of course, as usual. Oh, yeah, Bucs are at 15. Now, there are rumors about, hey, could the Bucs trade back, especially if certain players are available? Absolutely. I touched on this yesterday on the Extra Pod. That is a possibility that I believe the Pewter Report guys actually put out. Scott Reynolds brought up that scenario that, hey, they could very easily Tampa just trade back if certain individuals are still around. Now, like I said yesterday, there's definitely a realm of possibilities here as to where Tampa could go with the 15 overall pick. They could go defense or offense. Now, like I said on the Extra Pod yesterday, if they go offense, they're more likely going to go tight end, even though I wouldn't agree with it, which is the Cameron Sadiq kid from Oregon, who, look, I like. But like I said yesterday, Tampa already has 2 tight ends. They only need another one. Look, I'm going to be overly mad about it, but I'll just be kind of confused now if it's another, like, if they're doing it for receiver purposes to get another receiver in there. I could see it, but that one I would be not mad about it. Like, I would like it. I mean, it's a good talent, but I don't know if we necessarily need it. But who knows? Maybe my tune will change on that. But if they go offense, in my opinion, it's going to be receiver or offensive line. Probably will be receiver. In terms of the receivers, I mean, it could be anyone. It's, pick. I mean, look, if it's Carnell Tate, great. I don't think he'll be available by then. Which leads me to believe if Tampa does use their first-round pick and they indeed do what Scott Reynolds over at Pewter Report has suggested, that if they do see Tampa trade back, that means they are going to go, I think, defensively. And who will they go after will probably be an edge player, either Keldrick Falk from Auburn or Hakeem Mesidor from Miami. Now, Falk to me is, he was on Auburn. He was a good player for DJ Durkin, right? Had a good season last year, even though the team was terrible. Obviously, Tampa needs an edge guy. Now, the thing is, the Keldrick Falk, he's more of like an inside guy, kind of. He's more like a linebacker type body, so it's kind of a weird combination there. Obviously, Tampa needs a good pass rusher. I think that'll be good for Todd Bowles. I've seen, guys like Josh Pate, for example. I think he picked Falk to go there. I have no problem with that. That'll be fine with me. If it's Mesidor, no problem either. The only thing with Mesidor, though, well, yes, he's more talented than Keldrick Falk, and he definitely comes from a much better program that has developed a lot more. I mean, look, it's Jason Taylor is the defensive line coach of Miami, right? That's good. You also have Mario Cristobal, who was his coach for most of the time, along with Vinny Diaz, another well-respected defensive-minded coach. So his pedigree and his resume, better than Keldrick Falk. I think he has a much better talent than him. The only problem, though, is that he is an older player. And this guy was around during 2020, right? He was there with Vinny Diaz, and he was there for, again, most of Mario Cristobal's time there for up until this past year in the college football playoff run, right? And again, there's also the injury stuff. He was injured throughout most of his career and up until during the playoff. That's why he had the big arm brace on one of his arms. Even with that, you're still a good player. So either way here, if they go defense and they go edge, Keldrick Falk, Mesidor, I think if it is indeed one of these two, then yes, I think they will probably draft back. And I think the theory is they'll trade with the Steelers, I believe, and they'll just give more compensation picks. So I could see that if that's the case. If any of these guys are still available, which they might. So, my opinion, yeah, if they go the Bucs here, my final verdict here, I think they go defensive edge. Whomever it is, whether it's Messidor or Keldrick Frock, I don't care. Pick one of them. If it's Falk, usually he's a little bit younger. He's definitely a more. I guess he can be molded. I guess he's less. He's more fresh, more raw. So that's good. If you go with Messidor, talented, older, yes, that's a concern. And I guess with Messidor, at least with him versus Falk, is that again he's older, so that means that you won't. He will be around 30 probably at the end of his rookie contract. So if you don't want to keep him, you can get rid of him, save some. Go that route and have him fresh for a couple of years. If you go the Keldrick Frock route, you've saved some money and play the long game. So either one here, they sort of have their pros and cons. But either one here, I wouldn't have a problem with. I think going defensive here is my final verdict. Now, if they do end up going offensive, again, if they get the Cameron Zedick from Oregon, again, that's a good talent at tight end. There's no doubt about that. I would be. I guess I don't know if the right word's surprised, because we are hearing about that. That's a possibility. So it's not that I'll be surprised. I'll just be kind of, okay, like, sure, I would much prefer an edge player, but all right, that's cool. If it's another receiver, that'll be great. If it's Cardell Tate who falls all the way down, that'll be an absolute cinema. If we got him, so that'll be, I think, really, really good to pair him with Ibuka, both. But if it's again, I think my final verdict here is I think the Bucs go defensive. They go defensive edge. Whether it's Messidor from Miami or Falk from Auburn, I don't really care, right? At that point, just let Jason cook at that point. So that's my final verdict. Of course, we'll have reaction tomorrow on the extra pod. Yes, I think we'll do an extra pod tomorrow, reacting to it, answering some more questions. Again, that's a Spotify exclusive only, so you won't find it on the YouTube channel. That is a Spotify exclusive content there. So that's when we'll go over like Marvel news, Star Wars news, more Tampa Bay type stuff. But of course, the Bucs made it in here because it's the draft, right? So that's it for the show. How about that? It's a 52-minute long show. We had a new graphic there for the poll, the post-spring poll. Yes, there were some issues there, but we got through it. So we're all good here. That went a lot better than I thought it would have. So again, we'll be back on Tuesday. If we'll have a regular show Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and that should be the case there. We'll have extra pod tomorrow. Tomorrow, more likely, reacting to the Bucs first round pick. What happens there and answering your questions and whatnot. And by the way, too, I know we won't see you guys until Tuesday, but man, a very active stretch of severe weather next week, starting tomorrow. Actually, today and then into this weekend. A lot of places around like the plains, the southeast. I mean, it'll be very active. While here in Florida, will be dry, kind of the status quo for the last few weeks. We need rain here, especially. It's been really, really bad. In fact, actually, here in Jacksonville is like a burn ban, so you know how that's pretty bad if that's the case. But yeah, very active stretch of severe weather. So if you live in the plains all the way to the lower Midwest, Southeast, please be careful this week. It's going to be very, very rough. Like Monday, especially, even this time next week. It's going to be just the models and stuff are trending in a very, very interesting direction. So keep an eye on that. I'll be keeping an eye on it throughout the weekend. So until Tuesday for the big show again, tomorrow we'll have our extra pod. Until then, take care. Enjoy the NFL draft. Stay safe out there with the weather. It's going to start getting crazy starting today and until for the foreseeable future in terms of severe weather. So until then, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you guys on the next stream.